are back on the Spin Room. Thanks for staying with us. It's time for our weekly segment, The Social Contract, where each week we discuss in depth one of the core issues that divides Israeli society with one of I-24 News correspondents and a special panel of guests to break down the story. This week we're looking at the renewed discussion on the death penalty for terrorists. A bill that would make it easier to sentence terrorists to death passed a very preliminary reading last week, but it's a long road before this piece of legislation actually turns into law. Joining me in studio are two women who have lost their loved ones to acts of terror. Robbie Damelin, who lost her son David in 2002, and Hadass Mizrahi, who lost her husband Baruch in 2014. Thank you both very much for coming on the show today.
Thank you.
Also here to guide us through this very complex topic is I-24 News anchor Eylon Levy. Eylon, good to see you again. Thanks for coming on. Let's first take a look at Eylon's report and break it down when we come back.
Death for terrorists. A new bill would make it easier for Israeli courts to sentence terrorists to death. It narrowly passed its preliminary reading, 52-49. For Defense Minister Avigdor Lieberman, this is a key election promise from 2015. When his far-right Yisrael Beitenu party joined the coalition, party chiefs agreed to push the death penalty as the price of the deal. Lieberman argues the death penalty means deterrence. Israel is often forced to release convicted terrorists early as goodwill gestures in talks with the Palestinians or as part of prisoner exchanges, releasing hundreds of terrorists for just a single Israeli captive. Lieberman says keeping terrorists alive in jail is an incentive to abduct more Israelis to use as bargaining chips. Killing them will deter terror. Israel already has the death penalty on the books. It's never used because the defense establishment thinks it's a bad idea. But the bill makes three key changes. It would reintroduce to civilian courts capital punishment for murder, abolished in the 1950s, in cases of a terror attack. A majority of judges in a military court could deliver a death sentence, no more need for unanimity, and it says no to commuting a death sentence after a final verdict by a military court. Prosecutors would still have to request the death penalty. Israel has only ever used capital punishment twice. Once against an army officer falsely accused of espionage. He was exonerated after his death. And once for Nazi war criminal Adolf Eichmann, hanged in 1962 for genocide and crimes against humanity. Prosecutors stopped seeking the death penalty in the 1990s. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu supports the bill. After the brutal murder of the Solomon family killed around the Sabbath dinner table, Netanyahu said the terrorist should never smile again.
I think that in extreme situations, there is also a simple logic. And the simple logic is that whoever slaughters and laughs will not spend the rest of his life inside prison, but will be executed.
But the bill is provoking opposition. The Shin Bet security services warn the death penalty could encourage terrorists to kidnap Jews in the West as bargaining chips to save terrorists' lives. Israel's Sephardi chief rabbi is also opposed, saying putting someone to death is in the hands of God. His position will influence the ultra-Orthodox Shas party in the coalition, and some cabinet ministers are known to feel queasy about the bill. If you're sensing deja vu, you're not alone. The parliament debated a virtually identical bill 2.5 years ago. It rejected the death penalty then by a massive margin of 94-6. But back then, Lieberman's Yisrael Beitenu party was in the opposition. This time, it's in government. Israel's basic law protects the sanctity of human life. Not even questions of life and death are too sacred to be above politics.
Okay, we're back in studio. Robbie, please tell us a bit about David and how he died.
David was a student at Tel Aviv University, and he was studying for his master's in the philosophy of education, and he was called to go to Miluim, to the reserves, and was very much in a quandary about whether he should go or not. But he didn't want to let his soldiers down because he was the officer, and he was teaching philosophy to young kids who were going to be inducted into the army. And so he thought, is that a good example not to go and serve in the occupied territories? And also he said, I will treat people with dignity and so will all my soldiers. So he went, and he was killed along with 9 other people by a Palestinian sniper.
Yeah. Hadass, Baruch died in 2014. Tell us about that.
It was Erev Pesach. We were on the way to my parents to Kiryat Arba. My husband was killed. I was seriously injured. 5 of my children were in the car. They saw everything. They were injured from the bullets. I've got 2 bullets in my back, one in my kidney.
Still have them in your back?
Yeah, one in my kidney, one in my back. I've got a piece of metal in my leg. My nose was broken.
How old were your kids then? What the age?
The older one was 13, and the young one was 3 years old.
3 years old.
They were in the car.
All right. Okay, Elon. When we talk about the death penalty,
Yes.
The issue that immediately comes up is deterrence. It always comes up. How valid is that when most of the terrorists are willing basically to die anyway and be declared martyrs?
Right, I mean, as you mentioned, many of these terrorists think of their missions as suicide missions anyway, whether they're going to blow themselves up or trying to stab a soldier or a civilian and know that there's a good chance they could get killed in the process. Look, it would be one thing if we were talking about a much more severe, stringent death penalty, then we could have an argument about whether it's effective, and actually much of the evidence suggests that it isn't much of a deterrent. But this is actually a very, almost pathetically weak bill. The only really significant change is that it means that instead of a panel of unanimous panel needing to deliver the death penalty, only a majority.
Yeah.
Now, I don't think any terrorists who are seriously considering perpetrating an attack are going to think, oh, well, if only a majority rather than a unanimous panel of judges are needed, then maybe I'm going to stay off this attack. So even if the death penalty, in principle, might be a deterrent, this bill certainly isn't it.
Robbie, one of the reasons I think that people are talking about it more, and the Prime Minister's voices his opinion about this, is when you see the man who killed the Solomon family, which people who were murdered in Khalamish, smile in court. It bothers me. Can you understand those who push for the ultimate punishment when they see that guy smile in court?
Of course I can understand. That is the most natural human reaction to this. But the question is this: say you did assassinate or kill this man. Would that actually bring those Solomon family back? And much more important than that is that he will now become even more of a hero and more of a folk hero than even if he was a prisoner. So I can't see any reason to do that, because if you look at what's happening in the world, it has never been a deterrent for crime to kill people.
Okay, we're going to talk about what goes on in the rest of the world. We have to go for a quick break. We'll be back for more on this issue in just a moment. Stay with us. What you need to know, the news, fast and to the point, and the in-depth interviews that will keep you in your seat from the people that you trust. I-24 News presents The New Rundown every Monday through Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern, co-hosted by Nurit Ben and Kalev Ben David. Only on I-24 News.
I'm David Schuster.
And I'm Shayna Stulin.
Join us on I-24 News for our show Crossroads.
We bring you a comprehensive
And engaging
look at the global news and opinions from the crossroads of America.
Weeknights beginning at 6 p.m. Eastern, only on I-24 News.
I'm Emily Francis on I-24 News. Join us on Trending right here on the show that shines the light on the many amazing people doing positive work to inspire. This is the show about building bridges.
Weekdays at 8 a.m. Eastern, only on I-24 News. Politics, economics, business, and technology. Get the real news and the real insight about what's happening around the world. Michelle McCory breaks down the top stories of the day from the Middle East to the U.S. Weeknights beginning at 7 p.m. Eastern.
I'm Tracy Alexander for I-24 News. Join us on Perspectives and get the whole picture as we break down the day's top stories from all angles.
Thanks for staying with us on The Spin Room. We are discussing the death penalty in Israel on our weekly segment, The Social Contract. Still in the studio with I-24 News correspondent Eilon Levy and our guest Robi Damlin and Hadass Mizrahi, both who have both lost loved ones in terror attacks. Hadass, we're still talking about this issue of deterrence, what it means. Even the Attorney General, the Israeli Attorney General, Avichai Mendelblit, who was the chief military prosecutor as well, is opposed to this. The security services are opposed to this. They even think it might lead to more violence or even attempts abroad to kidnap Jews or Israelis to use as negotiating cards. What are your thoughts on that?
Look, I can say our story. Our story, they released in Iskat Shalit.
The Shalit prisoner swap deal. Yes, okay.
Yeah. He killed before that 4. He got a few years in jail, like 10 years he was in jail. He was released. He got a salary. I know that the time they was in prison, he got 6,000 shekel every month. He got. The family got everything from the Hamas, and he says it was worth it to me to sit in jail the same time. So I did it again. So he killed my husband. He injured me serious. He injured my children. He comes to jail. He knows what will be in jail. He will go to a five stars hotel because that's what Israel gives. He learns a first degree, a second degree. He gets everything that he wants. So why shouldn't he do it? When Israel came to stop him, the soldiers, so he put his hands up because he didn't want to die. And he said, I've got 11 children. Why should I die? I've got good conditions in the prison. And when I sat in the court and I spoke and I said what he did to us, so he laughed and laughed and laughed on us. Laughed.
Robi, what do you say to that issue about specifically maybe about the prisoner swap? Because this is really an issue that these people don't, there really is no deterrence because they go and they know, hey, we might be free in a few years later.
Look, firstly, I don't think that conditions in the Israeli jails for prisoners are exactly five-star hotels. I've actually been in and I've seen, and anybody that is confined
that might be
in a
debatable,
space...
but what about the prisoner swap issue? That's an important...
I thought long and hard about Gilad Shalit because on the same night that they announced that they were going to release the prisoners for Gilad Shalit, they also said they were going to release the man who killed David. And that's when it became really difficult. Because I thought, is all the stuff I'm talking about, peace and all this stuff, is that honest? Do I really think it's okay to release this man? And the whole weekend I spent very much with myself, and then I came to the conclusion. I remember David and I used to sit together and we used to say there's nothing more important than the sanctity of human life. And this Gilad Shalit can come back, but David will never come back.
Eilon, another claim is that if there was a death penalty, there would be less cases of alleged extrajudicial killings, like the Elor Azaria case, where soldiers and or citizens want to take the law into their own hands because they believe that these terrorists go unpunished or are released, for example, in these swaps, these prisoner swaps, like what happened with Hadass.
I mean, look, we don't have any accurate information about how many alleged extrajudicial executions there are. Obviously, that's something Israel very sternly denies. But look, it's a question about whether the state thinks that individuals have a right to life, in which case life is sacred, or whether it's something that can be bargained as part of the reasonable policy exchange, like you tax people, take away their money. But look, imagine someone comes and burgles your house in the middle of the night, you chase him down the road and you beat him up. Would you say that the state should start beating up convicts in order to dissuade you from beating up the burglar you catch in the middle of the night? No, I mean, the state has laws and should enforce those laws, and at the same time should reasonably punish people. I don't think it's reasonable to expect that the state should suddenly take action that possibly violates their rights. I mean, the Israeli Basic Law does say individuals have a right to life as an act of deterrence, as if these things are interchangeable.
I want to go on to the politics of this. I'm wondering. I'm going to ask both of you if you feel that you might be pawns in this political game. And the reason I ask that is something that also the Halamish family just said recently about the defense minister, Avigdor Lieberman, who claimed that he was going to push for the bill to pass through, and they felt that it was just all of a political kind of game in this coalition. Do you feel like that this is all about politics? I'll start with you, Hadass.
I can say when my husband in the jail, the terrorists over there, so when they come to the court, so the court is in Yehuda v'Shomron.
Judea and Samaria in the West Bank, yes.
And over there, you can have deaths.
The death sentence.
Yeah. But the lawyers don't want to give it. Israel doesn't want to give it, really. She really doesn't want to give it. They're scared what the world would think. And I said, if there was a death, so I know that my husband was over there. He wouldn't die. He would be here. Because he all the time says a terrorist. We want to kill the citizens who live in Israel because we think it's our country. We think it's and we didn't do anything to them. And I feel not comfortable with that. I go to the jail and I go to the court and I see him laughing on me and I hear Israel speaking about death and nothing's not happened. I think that Israel needs to believe that they won it. If they don't believe they won, it won't be here in Israel.
Robbie, how much of this do you think is a political game?
I think that in many ways there are organizations who are using bereaved parents for an agenda, and that's very sad and upsetting. And I don't think that any state, I'm hoping that my state, Israel, is supposed to be a light unto the rest of the world. I don't think we should take our examples from countries like Libya, Nigeria, and the rest of the world, which is going back on the whole idea of the death penalty. I don't think the state has any right to take another life. That, for me, it's like being reduced. It's reducing yourself to the monster that was.
What do you say to that?
I'm listening what you're saying, and I want to say, look, in Israel, what happens in Israel, the terrorists, all the terrorists, what happened is Israel. In any country, they haven't got what's happening in Israel. Every day you can hear people are dead from the terrorists. They want to come and kill. It's not normal. Israel needs to stop it. And I think to stop it, look, if they would sit in jail and finish all the punishment in jails, I would say melee. But they don't. It doesn't happen. What happened? They kidnapped soldiers. They kidnapped civilians, and they shoot, and then they want back prisoners. They're not prisoners. They're terrorists.
All over the world, Hadas, people commit murders. And some get released and some don't, and many recommit crimes, and many didn't commit crimes and were then released because they suddenly got a decent lawyer. I don't think that Israel needs to reduce itself to this point. I know the anger. I understand that. One man killed my son, not the whole of the Palestinian nation. I cannot accuse them, and I really, in a way, I would really love you, and we spoke about this beforehand, because I would love to invite you to come to one of our seminars. On Saturday, we had a seminar with something like 50 women. Each and every one of these women has suffered a loss. And guess what? Your pain, my pain, and their pain is the same.
So I can say you will be...
Sorry, I want to continue this conversation. We have to go for another quick break, and we'll continue this. We have to go for a quick commercial break. Stay with us. Don't go anywhere.
Stories. Stories that touch your heart and open your eyes. Stories that take you on a journey and show you something you will never forget. Look through the lens and see what others see. High definition, documentaries and discussions that connect us all. Join Lauren Izzo weeknights at 10:03 p.m. Eastern, only on I-24 News. Fearless, timely, and always engaging. Every night, David Schuster brings the news from around the world to your front door. Watch Stateside, weeknights at 9 p.m. Eastern, only on I-24 News.
Back on the Spin Room. Thank you for watching, discussing the very complex issue of the death penalty in Israel. Hadas, you wanted to respond to...
I wanted to say we're a very big group of test of life, big families, they lost. And we haven't got anything... we like Arabs. We haven't got a problem with the Arabs. We've got the problem with the terrorists that come and kill. they come and shoot. They go on buses and blow themselves. They come and stuck knives in people that don't do anything. It happens in Israel. It's not normal. We need to stop it. And I say, to stop it, we need to have to know the punishment will be very strong. The hardest punishment that can be here is death.
Okay, Elon, I wanted to ask you about the support around the world for the death penalty. Here, a recent survey said that about 70% of Israelis show strong or moderate support. What can you tell us about what goes on around the world?
Well, as it is around the world, there's a global trend towards the abolition of the death penalty. According to the United Nations, 170 states in the world have either formally abolished the death penalty or have some moratorium on it, or use it only in such exceptional cases that even though it exists on the books, like in Israel, it's never actually used. We see a trend where even in the Middle East, even in Asia, the numbers of the rate of the death penalty has actually gone down. We're in a situation now where only 4 countries, China, Saudi Arabia, Iran and Iraq, account for 90% of the executions across the world. In the Americas, there's only 1 country, the United States. In Europe, there's only 1 country,
and only
Belarus.
A few states in the United States.
And only a few states in the United States. Right, so the question is, does Israel want to turn to the West, or does it want to turn to the region we're in right now?
Robbie, you even wrote to the person who killed your son.
I wrote to his family.
To his family, and you got a response. Tell us about that.
Well, when I discovered that they had caught the man who killed David, that was a real test to see if I mean what I say. You can walk around the world talking about peace and all this stuff, but do you mean it? It took me 3 months, and I wrote a letter to the family where I told them about David, told them about the parent circle. As you know, I'm from the parent circle. We're a group of 600 families, half Palestinian, half Israeli, who all lost their family members. And I also said, I told them about the work that we're doing, but I said that maybe one day we could meet, we owed it to our children. But that comes from the whole of my South African background, of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, of what I had seen, of people who had actually forgiven, and the person who was forgiven who said, you have released me from the prison of my inhumanity.
And it took a few years until you got a response, didn't it?
It took a few years, and the response was not exactly from Martin Luther King.
Right. No.
It was a really
very harsh response,
difficult,
wasn't it?
yes. It told me I was mad, and I should stay away from his family. But now we went to make a film. It's a really long story, and there's no such thing as instant reconciliation. What happened is, I went to South Africa, we made the film, I came back, we got permission to go into the jail. He said he was willing to meet me now. But now we have different people running the jails.
When you think about reconciliation, what do you think about a move like that Robbie did, writing a letter?
I don't know about the move. I can only say the family that she's speaking of them, she said that they're half-half, so I can say that the families, half Palestinians, terrorist Palestinians, and half families, Israelis that were injured, the left map, and we have the right map. We have thousands of families that were very injured, and even if, I can say families that were injured even twice. That they lost once the brother, and 14 years after that they lost a son. And I say, and 300 families, half of them are the families that the son threw stones or threw the bottle or shoot it. So Israel came, soldiers needed to stop them, and they got killed. They're not shot like we went. With my family, with my children, and the terrorist comes with his child, with his son, his second family, and shoots, and he's laughing and shooting and saying Allah Akbar and shooting. We're a big group from Im Tirtzu, and big families of life. They want only to live and want only happiness. And I told myself, I won't fall down. If I will fall down, so my 5 children will fall down, and we won't be a strong family. And I think a surprise they give for the terrorists is that I should fall down, and my family, they tried to kill all my family, me and my 5 children, and Baruch Hashem, it didn't happen. And I say, we need to be strong, and we like our country, and we like everyone who lives there, and I haven't got anything for the Arabs, really. They didn't do anything. It's the terrorists that come and shooting every day. We need to stop it.
Hadas, would you consider that perhaps some Palestinians that have been killed, like 10-year-old daughter of Bassam Aramin, or this 12-year-old daughter of Najwa Saada, was it possible that they were innocent civilians?
No.
Well, then I think
I'm sure that they went and threw stones and they threw bottles and the family shooted on somebody.
Was sitting in the
Israeli soldiers or the Humani, they can be in Israel.
No, I know. This is really
quickly,
difficult because I don't want to be right and I don't want to have a competition.
No.
Yeah, and even have gone. You lost your son, I lost my husband.
We're going to have to end it at that. Thank you. And I actually want to thank you both so much for coming and for your bravery of sharing this story with everyone and with us every day. We really appreciate it. It's all the time we have. Thank you so much for watching. The Spin Room will be back tomorrow at 6 p.m. Tel Aviv and 8 p.m. New York. In the meantime, hang in there.